I'm Brandy Williams, and I wrote the book For the Love of the Gods, The History and Modern Practice of Theurgy, Our Pagan Inheritance. I'm talking on December 19th, 2016, the day the Electoral College confirmed Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States, and the day that Mercury went retrograde. So there's a sense in my world, in the people that I talk to, in my friends, a sense of great despair, of running up against the forces of tyranny. If we were already oppressed, we're feeling even more hopeless in the current climate. People who never before had felt that the world might turn against them are discovering that it can. And at this moment, I think it might be very interesting to hear about Boethius, a philosopher who lived in the 5th century of the Common Era. I'll tell you the story. Why should he get out of bed? He was still in prison, days turning to weeks, turning to months. In the beginning, his memories had comforted him, how good Symmachus had been to him, how happy he had been with Symmachus' daughter, Rusticana, as his wife. He remembered the day that was the pinnacle of his political career. His 2 sons, Boethius and Symmachus, were appointed consuls of Rome, and he stood between them to deliver a paean of praise to the Emperor Theodoric. It only took the slanderers a year after that to bring him down. They produced a letter, supposedly written by him to the Emperor Justin, attacking Theodoric. Clearly a forgery. Yet it was enough to exile him to this prison cell in a tower in a backwater city far from Rome. "Get up," Lady Philosophy said. "You have work to do." He tried to ignore her. "Leave me alone." The light from her face filled the room. She held out a hand. "Come to your desk. You still have life and hope." "Will you lecture me again?" he grumbled, swinging his legs to the floor. I know. Don't trust fortune. The swing of her wheel takes those she favors up and then down again. Now that I'm down, do I wait for her to swing me back up?" The lady said gravely, "Why don't you get off the wheel altogether?" He flexed his cold hands and reached for the stylus. How is this possible? What would Proclus say? Plotinus, Plato? "Settle the body, still the mind, contemplate the divine," he said. "The life of the spirit is the true life." "Remember," she whispered. "Remember, remember. You came from the stars. Philosophy gives you wings. Rise up, above the air, above the sun, above the stars. Rise up, rise toward the one. It is the road home. When you have walked that road, you will look down again on the earth and its petty rulers, and it is they who will seem like exiles to you." So that's the story that I told. I want to maybe look at just a few things from Boethius himself, from The Consolation of Philosophy, which was the book he wrote while he was in prison. He said, Lady Philosophy said to him, "Now about high office and the idea that it can bring honor and respect. Do you think for a minute that high offices fill the minds of those who hold them with virtue and drive away wickedness and venality? Isn't it the case that instead of reducing wickedness, high office makes it more notorious?" And she said, "With fancy clothes, jewels, and gaudy badges, Nero strutted along the streets, hated by all who could see through all that fancy get-up to his mean heart, shameless, and toward the end probably crazy. He foisted fools and villains upon the disgusted Senate as consuls, but what did those empty honors mean? It strikes me that this is as fresh today as it was 1,500 years ago, because it's the exact position that we find ourselves in. And I must say, too, that the solution is the same for us as it was for Boethius. Here's what Lady Philosophy told him. She said, "What governs earth and sea and sky is nothing less than love, whose tight rein, if it ever slackened, would leave creation in chaos of civil war's utter ruin. Love binds people too, in matrimony's sacred bonds, where chaste lovers are met, and friends cement their trust in friendship. How happy is mankind, if the love that orders the stars above rules too in your hearts." It's very difficult in dark times to remember, but it is important to understand this too shall pass, And as long as we hold to our love for ourselves and for each other, that's really the only thing that matters.